My name is Amy. I still remember the searing humiliation of that night at my father's retirement party. The opulent ballroom was filled with 200 guests, all there to celebrate my father's 35-year career in real estate development. I was dressed in my best, holding a small velvet box with a precious gift for him. But then, my stepmother, Victoria, stepped up to the microphone. In a voice that cut through the air like a knife, she said, "Security. Remove this useless woman." My father, just a few steps away in his sharp Armani suit, stared at the floor, silent. I didn't run. I didn't cry. I simply walked out with my head held high. Within 47 minutes, I canceled every family-funded account, transferred $17 million into a trust she knew nothing about, and turned off my phone. When I turned it back on, there were 56 missed calls. And there they were, my entire family, standing at my front door. But it wasn't an apology they came with. It was because a legal document had shattered 20 years of Victoria's scheming. Let me take you back to understand how I got here. My father, Henry, is a big name in the real estate world around Los Angeles. His name is on the permits of countless modern office complexes and shopping centers. When he announced his retirement, the whole town took notice as if a major figure was stepping down. But behind this grand facade, there was a past that was hidden from me for far too long. My mother, Lily, died when I was 12. She had a rare form of heart disease. It was a quick and cruel battle, and within 6 months of diagnosis, she was gone. What I cherish most are the memories at our old kitchen table. She would sit across from me with a stack of papers and a set of pencils, teaching me how to design small buildings. "Amy," she'd say, "every great creation starts with a solid structure." Little did I know then that she was a brilliant architect with her own firm. 8 months after my mother's funeral, my father married Victoria. She was a woman who could command a room with just her presence. She always wore designer clothes as if they were a second skin, and her hair was always perfectly styled. I was 12, and when my father told me I'd have a new mother, I didn't know how to protest. So I chose silence. Over the years, Victoria made sure I felt like an outsider. The first year after their marriage, I was moved from the main Thanksgiving table to a smaller one in the corner. By the third year, the family Christmas card only featured Victoria, my father, and Emily, Victoria's daughter from her previous marriage, who was a year younger than me. My explanation was that the photographer ran out of time for my photos. By the 5th year, my bedroom was turned into Victoria's art studio, and my things were packed away into the attic. "You'll be off to college soon," she said dismissively. I became a historical building restorer. It's hard, physical work, and I'm proud of it. I bring old and forgotten buildings back to life. But in my family's eyes, it was nothing compared to Emily's influencer lifestyle, with her high-paying brand deals and luxury cars. At the last family dinner, when Emily boasted about her latest sponsorship, Victoria just smiled. When it was my turn to speak, Victoria tilted her head and asked, "Amy, have you found a more stable job yet?" My father just stared at his plate, as always. 11 months before the retirement party, while sorting through an old box in my apartment in downtown LA, I found an envelope from my mother. On the front, in her familiar handwriting, it said, "For Amy, when she's ready." Inside was a letter revealing that she was a licensed architect with her own firm. She'd also made arrangements to protect my inheritance. Tucked behind the letter was a business card for Mr. Robert Harris, a trust attorney. I reached out to Mr. Harris, and he told me that when my mother first learned of her illness in 2005, she set up a trust. She had brought $17 million into the marriage, and this money was segregated within the family trust. An amendment in 2007 named me the sole beneficiary of these funds upon my 30th birthday. My father had known about this all along, but Victoria was kept in the dark. She thought the entire $42 million in the trust was for the family in general. As the retirement party approached, Victoria started her campaign to isolate me. She created a new family group, chat, and left me out. When I called to confirm my RSVP, the event coordinator initially said I wasn't on the list. Then, Victoria told me I was added at the last minute and warned me not to wear my work clothes as it was a black tie event. 2 weeks before the party, I drove to my father's house to give him an early retirement gift. I'd spent months restoring an original blueprint of his first commercial property. He seemed touched at first, but then Victoria walked in. She barely glanced at it and said they already had the walls full. She'd commissioned a portrait of my father, and that took precedence. As I was leaving, I overheard her whispering to my father that I'd cause a scene at the party and that they should prepare security. A week before the party, I had lunch with my mother's old friend, Sarah. Sarah hesitantly told me that Victoria had been spreading rumors about me at the country club. She said I was unemployed, relying on my father, and had mental health issues. I realized then that Victoria was building a narrative to justify my removal from the party. The night before the party, I debated whether to go. I could have stayed in my quiet apartment and let them have their perfect celebration. But I looked at my mother's letter and decided to give my father one last chance. I called Mr. Harris and confirmed that he could execute the transfer of the segregated funds within an hour if needed. At the party, as soon as I walked in, I could feel the whispers. People were looking at me with judgment in their eyes. Victoria's rumors had done their work. When I tried to approach my father, she intercepted me. With a cold smile, she used the microphone to call for security to remove me. My father just stood there, silent. After I left the party, I sat on the steps of the hotel for a moment, letting the humiliation wash over me. Then I took action. I called a fiduciary manager, and within 45 minutes, the $17 million was safely transferred to my trust. Back at the party, chaos ensued. Emily couldn't use her credit cards, and Victoria received an urgent notification about the significant asset movement in the trust. When she confronted my father, he was as shocked as she was. They called me repeatedly, but I ignored their calls. Later that night, they showed up at my door. Victoria was the first to speak, accusing me of stealing from the family. I calmly showed them the trust agreement and the amendment. I explained that the $17 million was always mine, rightfully inherited from my mother. When I also revealed that I knew about the trust amendment she'd been drafting to transfer the funds to Emily, her facade cracked. My father finally stood up to her when I showed him an email she'd sent to her lawyer, which accidentally got CC'd to Mr. Harris. In the email, she said my father didn't have the courage to stop her from stealing my inheritance. I laid out 4 conditions for my father if he wanted to rebuild our relationship. The $17 million would stay in my trust. Victoria's draft amendment would be destroyed. He would hire his own attorney to understand his true financial situation, and our relationship would be on equal terms, without Victoria as an intermediary. In the following days, the bank issued a margin call because the trust balance was now too low to cover the loans Victoria had authorized. An audit also revealed that she had misused around $3 million from the trust for personal expenses over the past 15 years. A week after the party, my father called me to meet for coffee. He showed me the compass I'd left at the party, which he'd kept on his wall. He apologized, and I could see the pain in his eyes. He'd asked Victoria to move out temporarily to figure things out. 2 weeks later, Victoria came to my door alone. She looked defeated. She admitted that she'd been terrified of me taking what she thought was hers all these years. I told her that I'd just reclaimed what was rightfully mine. 3 months later, I was on a stage at the National Historic Preservation Gala in Washington, D.C. I was there to present the launch of the Lilly Foundation, which I'd established using part of my trust funds to restore historical buildings in underprivileged communities. My father was in the front row, watching me with pride. I've learned that strength isn't about enduring in silence. It's about standing up for what's rightfully yours. And I'm grateful to my mother for leaving me the legacy, not just of money, but of the courage to take up space.